Okay, this is my warden healer. It's asked to make an updated build video. So, as you know, healers are excellent right now for the minor toughness buff that they give. They also give an extra synergy to the tanks for Alkosh. Okay, so let me go over basic setup. As with any healers, you do need to keep a lot of sets on. Okay, so I just happen to have a lot of extra garbage on here. Okay, but what I usually keep on her is I like to back bar the Olo. So I like to keep Olorimes and Jorvolds on the warden just because they have such awesome buffs and it makes them last longer. And Olo's always better paired with Jorvolds because, like I said, it lasts longer. Okay, so I keep this back bar and I proc it with the seeds. You also, I just haven't changed this, but you can do absorb mag on, or excuse me, weakening on this bar. Okay, so I just happen to have them switched at the moment. I just need to update it. The reason why is most tanks put Crusher on their staff bar, so they proc that with blockade. So I just need to put the weakening on here and then put like an absorb mag on this one, because you don't really want to necessarily override the Crusher if your group doesn't want you to. It's all based on group comp, but I like putting the Maelstrom Resto staff on the front bar. You can use any that you really want for the content, but I like this because I like to use regeneration a lot, so it gives me mag back. Okay, you can also use any of the other ones, like Masters if you really want to, or the Asylum. I just happen to have my perfected one on one of my other healers. Okay, so on her I actually keep all light. She is a high elf, and I just like having the bonuses from all light. You can do 5-1-1 with a heavy and a medium monster set. Okay, so I happen to have a little bit extra health on her right now just because she is set up for Vast Hard Mode at this time, but you can switch this back to max mag. Okay, so I have infused on the chest. You can do any mix of infused and divines that you'd like. Generally, you can do infused with tri-stat glyphs. That's just not usually how I set up my healers, but that's definitely a viable option. I like to do generally max mag glyphs on them. Okay. So you can see what the 5 pieces for Jorvolds. And the 5 pieces for Olorimes. So the reason why you want to just keep it on one bar is so you can control where you proc the circle. So you want to throw it on the DPS or right next to them or something, and the DPS needs to pay attention so they can step in it. Okay, so for my character sheet, right now, like I said, this is set up for VAS, so I have bi-stat food on. I usually run bi-stat, or if you really need to for whatever content, tri-stat. Reason why is the mag recovery from Witch Mothers isn't really necessary on the warden because you have your netch. Okay, so I have a little bit more points into health right now, but this was set up for group. For VAS, I tend to run a little bit lower health than some do. You might want to go up to like 22 or 23 if you're doing that. Otherwise, this is fine for some content. I like to keep my health around, for most content, around 18, 19. But some people are more conservative, and that's totally fine as well. Okay. So she's done quite a bit of stuff. I keep the ritual on just because you don't need the mag recovery for warden so much. Okay, so it just increases your healing done. Right, so for skills, you always want to keep on combat prayer. So you can give, it's a really good heal, and you can also give that to your group members. The altar is one, you just want to coordinate this with your tanks and or your other healers depending on what they're running, so you can do the opposite morph so that everyone can still get the benefit from having multiple altars out, because you can use, you can use the other synergy, you can use both synergies from the different morphs. Okay, so this is one that you can do for a flex spot. Another one that you could put here is Healing Ward, which is usual. I think I was doing VMAL with her last, and I don't really use a shield in there, so I was just using altar. So it's a good heal over time, but it's a lot of the times it's for that saving synergy and also for Alkosh. Okay, so Expansive Frost Cloak. This one is the morph that has a bit of a farther distance to it. You can do the other morph if you want more resistance. But if you'll see on here on my resistances, see what they're at, and then I go and I hit this skill and it kind of beefs that up. Okay, so I like to keep mutagen on. I like to proc my for the recovery for the resto, and I like it because it's like a spot heal if they get below 20% health. That brings them back from death, which is great. It's also great when used with like purge and blockade and whatnot. Okay, so I have healing springs on her. I also, you can totally use illustrious healing if you don't need the mag recovery. Okay, so my back bar, I like to keep the Betty niche on here. When you summon it, you can remove a negative effect, so it's like a personal little purge if you need that. So if you're slowed or whatnot, you can throw that on or have a dot on you. So it restores small amount of magicka and grants you major sorcery, which is something that you also get from spell power pots, so you don't have to use spell power pots because you keep that on, which is nice for warden if you keep that up. LE drains, always something you want to keep down. Both if you're doing for mag and stand, because it does do the major breach. So even if you are like in a dungeon with bunches with a couple of stams, you still want to throw that out. Okay, so Blockade of Storms is what you're going to want to use to do off balance, and also mostly to proc your enchants. Okay, Energy Orb is the better morph of that skill in the Undaunted skill line, because it does heal when you even when it floats past them. So if you have those DPS or tanks that don't know how to pop orbs, it'll still at least heal them a little bit. But when they do use it, then it heals them and restores their magic or stamina, whichever of their pool is higher. And Budding Seeds is, I think, one of the best things about Warden Healer. So I like this morph because it heals. It's like a big spot heal. You can also spam it real quick, like double tap it, and it acts as like an area breath of life type of thing. So that's one of the reasons why I don't generally run shrooms, because you can just tap it real fast and heal people with it if you need to. It also after 6 seconds does the heal on its own. And those in the it's a large AoE. It's bigger than Healing Springs. So you can see how big that is as opposed to Springs. Okay, so it's also a good synergy for tanks for Alkosh uptime. And just if you happen to have someone in there that needs a spot heal, they can do it, activate it themselves. Okay, so this is one of the ultimates I use just for major protection. So you'd use that during things like VHUF hard mode, during execute, or whenever you commonly use a Nova on a Templar. So that's a good option for that. So let me show you some of the things that I switch out sometimes. Make sure you have all your passives in here. You can use what people call trees. I like to use the Healing Thicket. I usually only use that in VCR sometimes. Generally don't need to use it, because if you place your heals right, you don't really need that extra bit. Okay, so what I actually do like about the shrooms is what people call it, enchanted growth. is not necessarily the heal, but that the target gets minor intellect and endurance, so they get their mag and stam recovery upped, which is kind of nice. So that's when I'll use that, is when like people have trouble with recovery, like let's say in VAS or something like that. I don't happen to use these other skills. I've seen some warden healers that do. Just I keep on seeds for the passives and don't really need those extra bits of heals. Okay, and I don't use any of these other ones. They're more DPS and tank skills. Okay, so make sure you keep up your passives. I just need to get more skill points, can throw in more of those. Keep crushing shock on just for that random time when you need it. You also can use the resto ulti on here. It does do that nice heal, and it gives major force and major protection, so this can be nice if you're like a front kite or in VAS or something like that. Don't generally need to use it for the heal, but it can be nice for the protection. Okay, so like I said, sometimes I switch out ward ally when I put down a shield. This is what I generally use. I'm not the biggest fan of a personal shield on healers, because you can keep yourself alive. You just got to heal yourself at the same time you heal everybody else. Okay, and the reason I like ward ally is because it shields one other person, and the shield strength increases when the target's really low. Okay, so harness magicka is something that I do have up, just in case I actually want to restore some magicka. So sometimes I'll use that in like AA and execute or something like that. That might be when I put on harness magicka. Make sure you keep up all your passives here. So the reason why I like to have more on the I just like to have more on the light armor, is because it gives you more bonus on these, because the more pieces you have on, the higher the bonus is. You can put in some passives into medium and heavy if you wear that. I just don't happen to wear it on her. I don't use any mage's guild abilities. You can use mage light or inner light if you need to. I don't use any of the Sigic. The Undaunted, sometimes you'll, instead of a different shield, you can use Bone Search. If you do use this, you might find yourself using Tri-Stat Food. Okay, so this is one that you'll use if people in your group are good at popping synergies. You'll definitely want to use it in VCR. Okay, and make sure that you have your passive up. I don't have this one up because I don't use that. Okay, and aggressive warhorns, really what you're going to want to be using is your ultimate. Don't really use anything else. It just gives the major force. So if you'll see, that does it for 12 seconds for the major force. If you go to here, it does major force for 7 seconds. So that's why you'd still use the warhorn over this one, is because it lasts longer. But this is good to have in case you really need that extra heal. Okay, so you'll definitely want to have purge on as a flex spot. Sometimes I'll flex that out for, let's say, my shield, like, or frost cloak or blockade if you really don't need it in that fight. Okay, so you definitely want the efficient because it costs like half as much magicka. Okay, and you don't have like a ritual like a Templar does, so you don't have that one thing where people can purge themselves by activating this energy. I am a high elf. I wanted to do that to give me enough of the magicka recovery, more max magicka. Okay, you can also do Breton for resistances, and you can also do Argonian if you want easy mode with potions and such. I need to get my medicinal use up higher. I don't find myself needing potions as much on the warden, which is nice. Okay, so I'll show you the foods that you want to have available. Okay, so I did use this in VCR a bit, the movability with Major Prophecy for crit heals and major intellect for mag recovery, so I did make those. I also use tri-stat whenever I need to get some stamina back, as well as the health and mag. Okay, and you can use trash pots, but mostly if you're just doing content that's not that difficult, isn't a score run, whatnot. I do have spell power on her, but it's not quite as necessary to use because you already have the major sorcery. So I don't really use that. You can even just make, I have some on here that are just mag recovery, major intellect and major endurance. So if you need just stam and mag back, you can also make it where you just get the crit, like that's in the movability pots. So the crit and the mag recovery without the movability. So, and then for the food, I generally use the tri-stat. You can use this if you need more health. Personally, not necessary, but because if I want more health, I'll want more mag. Okay, and then I also have Witch Mothers on just in case I ever want to use that or need some more recovery. Okay, let me go over my champion points real quick. So as always, the green tree is usually based on your gameplay. I always put more into break free because I hate being stuck, and so it doesn't cost as much when you break out. So I have the tenacity up high just for when, because you'll want a heavy attack with your resto for the passives, and when you do that you get a bunch of magic back, which is why you don't need your mag recovery super high on here. Do you want some, I just put some in stam recovery because I had built her for VCR, and you do want some stam back in there. And I do a little bit of roll dodging, not too much, so I put in tumbling, and I do some blocking, so I put that into Shadow Ward, but you can do whatever you want. So you want to put 100% in Elfborn and Blessed. I do also have some into Spell Penetration and Staff Expert and Thaumaturge, but you can really mess with the blue however you want it to. Those two are what's important. And right now, the red is just set up for whatever trial that I had been set up for last, so that changes. If you need a CP set up for each trial, you can let me know, and I'll link a graphic. And I think that's about it. Just the sets that you want to keep on hand for sure are Earthgore and Bogdan Nightflame, and possibly even Sentinel for if you have a lot of stam in the group for your monster sets. And then you'll want to keep Olo and Jorvalds mostly on the Warden. You can ask the Templar to wear something else. If they don't have it or won't wear it or whatnot, then you can use Infallible Aether, as long as you're good at keeping up your heavy attacks and mending. Or you can also put IA with Jorvalds, you can put mending with Jorvalds, just whatever your group needs for the trial. You just don't want to have 2 Olorems, because that is a little bit of overkill, because especially with the Jorvalds, it lasts for a long period of time, about 40 seconds. And Spell Power Cure you can have on hand just in case your group likes to, like on Hellraw split, to have Spell Power Cure on both top and bottom to increase the spell and weapon damage. There are other specialty sets that you can use for certain content, so if you have any question about those, you can let me know, but I won't go over them on the basic. So that's about it for that. Let me know if you have any questions.